An entitled Karen blocks an open parking spot for her friend in New York City, refusing to move out of my way and even going as far as to mock and laugh at me when I questioned why she's standing there in the way. And I've honestly never been more blown away by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. After driving into New York City from New Jersey, I get to the area I'm looking to park around. I have a routine of scanning the same 5 blocks I know well, and it usually works out to where I can find a free street spot in an average of about 10 minutes. Last night, I happened to see a wide open spot on the second block I drive down just after a couple of minutes. Feeling lucky, I turn on my blinker and I start to move over to prepare my parallel park. But there's just one problem. There is a lady standing in the middle of the spot, shaking her head at me with her hands up, motioning for me to stop. At first, I think that she's assuming I'm an Uber driver or something like that, and she's not the right passenger. So I roll down my window and I say to her, I'm trying to park here. This immediately sets her off, and she begins spewing some nonsense along the lines of saying, no, you can't do that. I'm reserving this spot for my friend who's around the corner. I tell her that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard, and I ask her to remove herself from an open public parking spot. She refuses, arguing that their friend was only a couple minutes away and that she's lived in New York for a long time. She thinks she knows what's right and what's wrong. This was all followed by a maniacal laugh of hers that indicated to me that I wasn't going to get anywhere by further escalating. I decided to drop it and circle around the block. A few minutes pass by, and once I get back to the same spot, it is in fact taken and she is nowhere to be seen. After all of that, I ended up finding someone else leaving a few minutes later, but I was still left fuming at the thought of someone so entitled. I realized later that I should have recorded her because it was so unbelievable to encounter someone like that. I mean, has anyone ever heard of this unspoken rule that she thinks exists, that you could stand in a spot for someone else? She didn't really take the time or have the grace to explain the circumstances of it all, but instead she just said, no, you can't park here, my friend's coming. Again, this is a free public open spot that she was blocking with her body. I've never seen or heard of that before, so alas, I want to turn to the internet to find some answers. Yeah, I know if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would be super annoyed. You're literally just trying to park your car and this Karen comes out of nowhere and blocks you. Now, I don't know the laws of New York City, but I think just out of common courtesy, it's probably not okay to block an open parking spot with your body. Like, not only is that dangerous, but like, what if the guy didn't see this lady standing there? It is unlikely, but it definitely happens to other people. Like, she could have seriously gotten hurt, and that was all for what? Trying to save a spot for your friend? And the way she laughed about it, that really would have ticked me off as well. Like, that kind of behavior and attitude is so unnecessary, and it's just incredibly rude. Now, if anyone does know the laws of New York City, please let us know down below in the comment section, but in my opinion, I think what she's doing is probably very wrong, and not even mentioning the safety factors that come into all of this. Like, I can't imagine that's a legal way of like blocking a spot in New York City, because if that is, that really is a weird precedent to set for that city in general. So let us know down in the comments, what do you think? Do you think that lady was a Karen for blocking that spot? Or do you think she was in the right to try and save that for her friend? Let us know down below. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I served my wife divorce papers while she was at work, all because she took her mother's side when her mother robbed me of something that was important to me. And I'm now just hoping that this process goes well, as I'm really looking to get away from my wife. Here's what happened. This story is an update to a previous story we covered on the channel, where the original poster had his mother-in-law arrested after she stole a vintage collection of keys that the original poster had locked away in a cabinet. As a result of the mother-in-law getting arrested, the wife has walked out on the husband and has decided to side with her mother-in-law. And now the original poster is considering divorce. Here's what he had to say next. Okay, to start things out, it really didn't take me long to find and hire a divorce lawyer. And trust me, she is mean. Yes, my lawyer is a woman, and she seems pretty good at her job. She asked me a couple of times if I really was sure that I wanted to do this. But once I explained my full story to her and showed some evidence, she agreed with me when I said I wanted to start as soon as possible. So she got the ball rolling. She told me how much this divorce was going to cost me, but I don't care. I will rebuild my savings later as a free man. I didn't even want to rent the house I'm currently living in anyways. My wife made sure of that. I would have been happy staying in our old apartment that we used to share until we could have actually afforded to buy a house together instead. But that's obviously never gonna happen. I will be paying a lot less for an apartment once we separate. Before coming home, my wife spent some time at a cheap motel well when she bailed her mother out of jail. And she even threatened to call the police on me when I went to see her there. I changed the locks with my landlord's permission while my wife was still away, and I sent her a text saying that I'd done so, but I guess she had not bothered to look since she never responded. So upon returning home, she ended up pounding on the door and screaming at me to let her in. I just watched her through the doorbell cam and let her keep it up for a while before she finally got on her phone to call me. I was already walking home from having had dinner with my best friend when she called, and I pointed out the text message that she did not even bother to read. When I got home to let her in, she was puffy-cheeked, teary-eyed, and very red. I had a new key ready for her, and I told her if she gave a copy to her mother again, I would be notifying our landlord, as they were very angry that she had given her mother a key to begin with. I'm not sure what the landlord could have done, but it was enough for my wife to comply for the moment. Plus, I'm not going to be living here much longer anyways. Now, my mother-in-law still believes that she did absolutely nothing wrong, and is playing the victim to my wife every chance that she gets. She is not allowed over anymore for obvious reasons, and I've been repeatedly called a monster by her and my wife. I've never been more glad that my mother-in-law has no friends, because then she'd be telling them all her convoluted version of the story just to paint me as a villain. I just know it. She was told how much my key collection is roughly worth and what kind of felony charges she will be facing. Now, since my collection was returned fully intact, she may get the charges lessened. I would like to hope she gets a decent punishment at least, but I'm not really counting on the system to throw a book at a manipulator like her. As I said in my previous post, my wife also paid her mother's bail and what she owed the pawn shop with money out of our joint bank account, and then smugly told me that she wouldn't be putting the money back. And basically, that was a terrible power move and her only way to try and put all the cost on me. I have since removed everything I had in that account and stopped all future payments to it so she can't spend my money too. And I've changed my passwords to pretty much everything. Well, my wife finally flipped out on me when she finally checked the bank account a couple of days ago, because that meant that she had paid for her mother's bail and the reimbursement of the pawn shop, all with her own money. And now there was no more access to my funds to supplement her own with. But I just ignored her tantrum and went into the home office to watch anime on my computer. She banged on the door for a while demanding that I talk to her, but I just stayed quiet and put on headphones. My wife has repeatedly demanded that I drop all charges against her mother, and even said that if I really love her, I would not only stop all of this, but I would cover the cost too. When I kept refusing, she moved into the spare bedroom. She tried to kick me out of the master bedroom first, but I made it clear I'm not giving up the master bedroom when she is the one at fault. She then tried to start taking my stuff out, but I just blocked her while pointing my finger at her face and saying no, as if I was talking to a dog. She ended up crying and saying I was demeaning her, but I just didn't care. Then, for some more deception on her part, she admitted to me out of pure spite that until this mess had started, she had been planning on letting her mother come and live with us full time, all because of the state of her hoarder house. She actually boasted that she was just gonna let her move in while I was at work. I told her we were supposed to be equal partners before this all happened, and I was sick of her unilateral decision making. And as long as I'm paying 50% of the lease, her mother will not be living here with us. And if she tried, I would throw all of her mother stuff out immediately. My wife looked like she wanted to explode and stormed off to have a drink and a loud phone call with her mother in the kitchen. But I just started removing her stuff from the master bedroom, and I left it in the other room for her. I've put a new lock on the door on the master bedroom as well. I had my wife served at her job, which she said really embarrassed her in front of her colleagues, and she flipped out on me again once she got home. Apparently, she didn't take my threats of divorce seriously until those papers were actually in her hands. She said I couldn't do this, but I told her I was done. She made it more than clear where she stands. I told her I learned a rather interesting phrase online. When people show you who they are, you should believe them. And she's clearly shown me who she really is. And it's not the woman that I fell in love with. That woman disappeared and got replaced with an entitled mommy's girl who refuses to act her age right after we got married, which makes it pretty obvious she did that intentionally. At this point, I don't think she ever loved me. She only loved my wallet. I can't stay married to a woman who conned me into marrying her. Then she started screaming at me that she wasn't a gold digger, so I asked her if she'd ever been inclined to stay married to me if I'd done all the same things to her. She tried to deny it at first, then looked around while she was trying to find a better answer. Then she just gaslit to deflect as usual, but I was having none of that. I told her right then and there that I'm not renewing the lease on the house with her because I don't want to live with a petulant woman child that I can't trust. And if she wants to keep the house, she can go ahead and start a new lease to move her mother in once I'm gone. Finally, that's when the real waterworks started. She said I was destroying our family, but I said to her, "What family?" And I pointed out how we don't have kids and her mother is more important to her than me. We have no family. Then I just walked away. She loudly cried in the living room for hours, but I ignored her. Now she's giving me the hardcore silent treatment and won't even look me in the eyes. And you know what? I'm actually kind of enjoying it, which just seems to make her angrier. As an added bonus, I warned my current landlord about my wife wanting to move her mother in. I gave him all the details I had about my mother-in-law, the state of her hoarder house, and how much of a deceptive mommy's girl my wife is. And I warned him that if he let my mother-in-law live in any property that he owns, she would turn it into an utter disaster. For reference, my mother-in-law is a hoarder. He thanked me for telling him, and is now not going to let my wife renew the lease on her own if she tries. He will be advertising the property soon, and my wife has no idea yet, and likely would have only just barely been able to afford the house with her mother's help anyways. One more thing. Yesterday, somebody warned me to take my name off the joint bank account entirely, so I would not be on the hook for any overdraft fees. I took that to heart and I went to the bank to get it done. It only took a few minutes to do it, and the bank is about 10 minutes away by car, so we're all good there. I've been working from home lately, so I had the time, and all statements from the account were already printed and given to my lawyer as well, so I can wash my hands of it, and hopefully this whole process goes smoothly. It really sounds like the original poster has gone to the extreme lengths just to try and protect themselves. Like with this added context as well as the addition to this story, it really seems like the wife just does not care about this guy at all. She very clearly wants to take the side of her mom and choose her over him, which in my opinion is her showing her true colors. And in all actuality, this is really a sad situation, because here you have a partner that you thought you could love and spend the rest of your life with, but the second her crazy mother gets involved in your lives and literally robs you of something that's really important to you, she suddenly turns around and says, "Well, wait a second, that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that." But I guarantee you, if your mother-in-law stepped into your house and stole some of your wife's belongings, I bet she would be singing a different tune. So honestly, I hope this all goes well, because it really does sound like a messy divorce, and it doesn't sound like your wife is going to be amicable in the slightest. Am I the jerk for cutting back on my part of the household work, all because my wife doesn't make the kids do theirs? Because right now, I'm getting very frustrated with the current state of affairs, and at this point, I'm not really sure what to do. Here's what happened. Growing up, my wife was parentified by her parents, who expected her to do everything in their house so that they could work. She was basically a live-in nanny, a cook, maid, tutor, and gardener from the time she was 12, all the way up until she left for college. She basically had to hide her intelligence from her mom and dad, and applied for scholarships and college admission without them knowing. It took a while for their relationship to heal, but it still affects her. I, on the other hand, grew up on a working ranch. I had chores and I had a lot of them, but my time was my own after they were done. We have been married for 13 years now, and we have 2 kids that we agreed would do chores. The thing is though, she does not enforce the chores. If the kids don't clean up, she doesn't make them put down whatever they are playing with and make them clean up. If my son leaves his dirty dishes on the couch, she won't make him put it away. We have had several discussions about this. The last one, I had to go get stitches because of something the kids left undone. I told her that she needed to make the kids do their chores, but she said she didn't want them to feel about us the way that she felt about her parents. I said that there was a huge difference between being an unpaid servant and cleaning up after yourself and helping put groceries away. Our kids don't have to help with horses and cattle. Now, I have no problem being the bad guy, so I started making the kids do their chores, and my wife absolutely hated it. And I eventually found out that she started doing their chores so I would think that they did them. So I thought to myself, fine, I'm just gonna stop doing mine as well. Not the yard work and stuff like that, just my part of the housework. She works from home, and she has a home office where she sees clients. So if the house is a mess, it reflects badly on her. So she has been doing everything, and she is angry at me for being so petty. But I don't think it's petty to want to raise useful humans. I don't want my son or daughter not being a full partner in their future relationships. My wife has now told the kids that they have to help, and she is mad that I manipulated the situation to force her hand. Now, like I said, I don't think it's too much for kids to clean up after themselves and help out with all the housework. They are both within 10 years of going away to school, and I want them to be civilized before then. So am I the jerk in this situation for trying to make this happen? Because honestly, I don't think that I am. I am 100% on the original poster side, and I think the fact that the wife in this scenario is like cleaning up after the kids, instead of even attempting to find some kind of like middle ground to work with here, in my opinion, is so unbelievably toxic. Like, sure, you might not like the fact that the kids have to do chores, but at least you can step in and be like, okay, let's do it, but not in the way that makes them want to hate us. Because I think the original poster is the only one thinking rationally in this situation. He's not asking them to do some impossible task. He just wants them to clean up after themselves and do the dishes. Like, is it really that hard? Because I definitely don't think it is. It also sounds like the wife, in my opinion, might need to like work out the way she feels about her parents, because she is projecting hardcore on her husband and assuming that he's going to do the same thing to her kids that her parents did to her. But that literally is not what's happening here, and she is completely overreacting. So no, I don't think the original poster is a jerk, and I think the way they're going about doing this is completely in the right. Because in my opinion, I think it's very important to teach those skills early on, and those kids are absolutely old enough to learn them. Am I the jerk for going against my mom's wishes and talking to my extended family? Because right now she is super angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I got caught talking to my paternal side of my family against my mom's wishes. My dad passed away when I was 6 years old, and when I was 8, my mom remarried. My mom just had me at the time, and my mom's husband had 2 kids, with my mom being pregnant with their first kid together. Now, my paternal family were the side I actually knew and was the closest to. My mom's family was never around. Nothing changed after my dad passed away, but when my mom remarried, stuff absolutely did. They didn't want my mom's husband or his kids to be included because they were not family. My mom wasn't okay with that and told them they accept all of us or none, and that we all had to be equal. They said I was their grandchild, but not the other kids. So my mom cut them off from us, and she moved us far away to a state where grandparents' rights would be a lot harder to get. And you know what? She was right. She fought like crazy to make sure they won no rights to me. I saved my grandparents' number and stored it away so my mom wouldn't know, and I could talk to them once I had a phone. I ended up back in contact with that whole side of my family when I was 11, and this is also when I had my own phone. We talked a lot, and I told them once I was old enough, I would move back and we could see each other and all this other stuff. My mom and her husband never knew, but they also remained bitterly angry that my paternal family rejected the idea that we could all be equal. Last month, one of my step-siblings heard me talking to my grandparents on the phone and told their dad, who told my mom. And that's right about when the garbage hit the fan, and I got into a lot of trouble. Luckily, I had the number stored somewhere else, so if I did get found out, my mom couldn't stop me having that information for my family. I was grounded for 2 weeks, and then my mom and her husband asked me what in the world I was doing going behind their backs. My mom pointed out that it really hurt my step-siblings' feelings that I was sneaking around with people who rejected them and that they refused to welcome them into their family. She told me I shouldn't be okay with them treating my siblings like they are lesser, and I said it made sense to me since they weren't related to my grandparents or extended family in any way. I told her it would be different if it was her family, but these are my dad's family, and my dad isn't part of the new family that she made. She then told me that by doing this, I had chosen my paternal family over my actual family, and I said yes, and I told her that I would do it again too. I then mentioned how I was only a couple of years away from moving back home and being closer to my family, and that I would be seeing them all the time. Her husband then got so mad, I thought he would burst at the seams, and he said to me, "My kids think the world of you, and they would be so hurt to see that you don't care about their feelings." My mom called me disrespectful and made a big deal about me going behind her back. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Personally, in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with contacting your extended family. Those people are your last connection to your father, who passed away, by the way, and you obviously want to try and stay connected with them in some kind of way. And for your mom to deny you that right to talk to them and have any kind of connection with them, in my opinion, is really toxic, and it's just completely unnecessary. Like, sure, I can understand where she's coming from to an extent, where she feels betrayed that she and her husband and his kids are not going to be welcomed into that side of her family, but that doesn't mean that you should be punished and not allowed to talk to them at all. Like, in my opinion, that is such a big leap in logic, it's not even funny. So honestly, with all that in mind, I don't blame you for going behind their back just to try and establish some kind of connection with them. It's also like super ironic that your stepdad is trying to claim that you don't care about your step-siblings' feelings, as well as getting so mad he's about to explode, but the reality is that they don't care about your feelings. Like, they literally didn't even consider how you feel about this situation and just automatically almost like held you prisoner from talking to your family. Like, if they actually did care about your feelings, they would have allowed allowed you to talk to your father's side of the family instead of getting mad and acting like you're betraying them. But the only thing you're betraying is their weird, prideful anger. And the proof of that is the fact that they moved several states away, also that your grandparents couldn't have any contact with you. And it also doesn't help that you have no other extended family because your mom's family's never involved. They literally have no influence in your life in the slightest. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk in this scenario. If I was stuck in your situation, I probably would have done the same thing. Because in my opinion, I think you have every right to talk to your extended family. And the fact that they're trying to deny you that privilege is honestly incredibly toxic. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.